Rents have increased between 30 and 50% since 2021. And according to some studies, as many as 50% of renters struggle to pay their monthly rent. So in this video, we're going to talk about three things. One, what are some of the major drivers that have caused these rent increases? Two, we're going to look at a very specific driver that not many people know about and has been underreported in the media. And three, what can be done to eliminate this little known driver from causing further rent increases? So let's get to it. Welcome to the Rich Fleming channel. I'm Rich Fleming, in case you didn't guess, and I'm here to teach you everything you need to know about living, working, playing, sleeping, eating in the San Francisco Bay Area. So regardless of whether you're moving to the area, considering moving from the area, moving within the area, or just have general real estate questions, that's why I do these videos. So if you have questions, feel free to reach out to me. My contact information is in the video description below. There are also links to books I have written on various real estate subjects: buying a home, selling a home, inheriting a home, moving to a new area. They are all in the video description link below, so feel free to sign up for them. They are free resources for you. Now, as I see it, there are two primary drivers of the rapid rental price increases that we have seen over the last 4 to 5 years. Now, the first driver of the rapid increases in rental prices that we've experienced, well, that's simply an economic imbalance between the supply of housing and the demand of housing. Demand has dramatically outstripped supply, especially in California. Now, by some estimates, California is anywhere between 1 and maybe 3 million housing units short. And it isn't being helped by California's slow production rate of new housing. Depending on what study you believe, California needs to add anywhere between about 200,000 and 300,000 new housing units every year. And it has failed to do so every year except for once since 1990. It also issues new building permits at a far lower rate than states like Arizona, Florida, and Texas. Those states typically issue 2 to 3 times the number of building permits that California does. Rent increases have also exceeded the average wage increases that most people have seen over the last 10 years or so. Few people would probably argue that this imbalance between the supply of rental housing and the demand for it is really the driving force behind the increase in rental prices. But there is a second factor, and some would argue a more insidious factor that may be driving rental price increases, and that is rent pricing algorithms. And we're going to talk about one of them because it's been in the news lately. It's called RealPage. And before I go any further, I want to give a shout out to the channel More Perfect Union, because they did a video on RealPage maybe 3 months ago or so, and I had not been aware of this company's existence. And they based their video on a study done by ProPublica, which, they do great investigative journalism. So I'm going to put a link to that somewhere here on the page. Check it out. Now, what is RealPage? Well, RealPage is essentially a service that enables property managers to maximize the return on the units they have available for rent. So they will go to RealPage, they being the property managers, they will provide RealPage with information on the rents they're charging, the number of vacancies they have in their properties, the length of time that they offer for leases. And RealPage will take that information and give them recommendations on how to price their properties and recommendations on the lease terms and things like that. Now, that may not sound too bad, but here's what RealPage has gotten into trouble for. And I'll talk about the trouble in a few minutes. RealPage not only takes the information from a single property manager, but they take information from property manager A, B, C, and D, and they combine that information and analyze it and give recommendations to those property managers based on the market data they have now collected. In other words, they have essentially given all of the property managers insight to what other property managers are doing. Some people argue that this is collusion and has decreased competition among property managers in the rental market of many major cities. Now, over the last couple of years, once more information about RealPage kind of became public knowledge, a number of states' attorneys general and the Federal Department of Justice began investigating RealPage. They were concerned that RealPage essentially allowed property managers to collude and avoid competition with one another. So after concluding its investigation earlier in 2024, I believe it was, the Department of Justice decided to file suit against RealPage and some of its clients. This suit was joined by a number of states, and the main allegation is that RealPage and its clients are participating in anti-competitive behavior. The argument that the Federal Department of Justice is making is that because RealPage is essentially a central depository for rental information from property managers who control a significant portion of the market, they are able to take that information and feed it back to the different property managers to reduce competition and maximize the rental prices and profitability of those properties. There are three fundamental arguments RealPage has made against the claims that the Department of Justice have made. The first is, hey, our clients, maybe they control 7-8% of the rental market. We can't influence the entire rental market with that small of a market share. And the response to that has been, well, that may be true, but most of RealPage's clients control the highest end rentals. And when the availability of those rentals decreases and the price increases, some people who would consider that market are now forced into what is known as going from A-class rentals to B-class rentals, the next tier down in the quality of rentals. And that forces more competition in that category of rents, which forces some of those original B-class rentals to move to C-class and so on. The trickle-down effect, essentially, of RealPage's and their clients' actions, it is argued, is impacting the entire rental housing market. RealPage's second argument in their defense, hey, we don't force property managers to follow our recommendations. But the Department of Justice claims that, for the most part, they come pretty close to following your recommendations. And if they don't, RealPage would actually call the property management companies and ask them why they weren't following the recommendations and encourage them to do so. RealPage's third argument is, hey, we don't really facilitate property managers coming together and discussing exactly what they should do with pricing and inventory and things like that. We don't do that. But the Department of Justice argues, hey, RealPage, you sponsored events, happy hours, and other events for property managers in different areas to come together and meet and discuss rental-related issues. At this point, there's no real definitive sense as to how this lawsuit's going to turn out. It was only filed a few months ago, and there is reporting that RealPage is trying to work with the Justice Department to figure out how they can change their service to meet the needs of the DOJ and the various attorneys general. But based on the research that I have seen, legal scholars that seem to know about this particular area of the law say that RealPage may be facing some significant legal liability. That leaves us with the question of what can we do to address these pricing algorithms in the rental market that may be driving up prices? Well, it's kind of simple. We could simply ban the use of algorithms. San Francisco has done this. They have banned the use of pricing algorithms in the rental market for setting lease terms and lease prices. It would be relatively simple to do that on a statewide level or even nationally, because it creates anti-competitive behavior and it gives property managers and property owners way more market power than it gives consumers. But it's important to realize that the rental market is not the only market where these algorithms are being applied. Recently, the Department of Justice sued a company called Agristat. They do a similar thing as RealPage, but they do it for the major meat processors. So the U.S. has 4 major meat processors that account for around 80% of the meat processing market. They all use AgriStat, and they set their production and prices using that service. You can guess what the Department of Justice claimed those companies are doing with that information: limiting the supply and increasing the price. But that's the claim. It is also being claimed that hotels are doing a similar thing, that they are taking the information on the availability of rooms at different hotels, putting it into an algorithm, and using that information to set prices for all of the hotels in a given area, like Atlantic City or Las Vegas. Now, I'm generally, in case you couldn't guess, not a big fan of these pricing algorithms in our society. They really don't add any value and just really find a way to extract more money out of consumers. I'm going to get off my high horse now. If you have any questions about relocating to or from the Bay Area, or just have general real estate questions, that's why I do these videos. Feel free to contact me. My contact information is in the video description below. You can sign up for a 30-minute Zoom conversation with me there. I also have links to my free ebooks on home buying, home selling, inheriting homes. So sign up for those. If you enjoyed the video, give it a thumbs up so YouTube knows to show it to other people with interests similar to yourself. Hit the subscribe button and the bell notification so you know each and every time I do a new video, and I'll catch you in the next video.